go ahead if you can be on camera. That's always greatly appreciated. Just so that I have an idea. I'm like a live in person talking type person, so I always appreciate when folks are on camera if you can be, but it's not a huge deal. Got that. All right. Oh, Sarah looks like she's out walking. There you go. There you go. I know exactly where you are. I'm hopefully be out there here in just a little while. Cool. So you can just listen in, Sarah, and if you have any questions, you can still ask. I'm clicking way too many things here. I keep messing with my slides. All right, here we go. So have you heard or do you know that researchers have actually found a treatment that's shown to improve your memory, increase your brain functioning, help you concentrate, improve our immune systems, and even decrease the likelihood of you getting in a car accident? If I also told you that there was no documented side effects to this treatment, would you be interested? It sounds too good to be true, right? So the treatment is actually sleep. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about, everybody here knows my name is Joe. We're going to talk about how success starts with your sleep. So at BFP, as you can see on this slide, you're going to start hearing us talk about this a lot as we continue to introduce our nutrition coaching program. But we believe something as fundamental as nutrition should not be complicated. And that's why we go through a habit-based approach. But we want to help everybody build a strong nutrition foundation so that you can meet the short-term goals, right? Like we've gotten this challenge, but also the long-term goals, the things that happen after this challenge, because that stuff is pretty important. And a lot of people get so stuck in the challenge trap and that challenge mindset that they really just go off the hinges when they get done with this challenge. We're doing our best to keep you from doing that with this. So as I mentioned, in case you're not aware, we're launching our nutrition coaching program, and we're hoping some people at BFP are looking to create their own success story with this. We've helped people with this in the past, and we've tweaked some things, we've experimented with some things, but the biggest thing with folks, that have had success in the past is that long-term solution with a coach, with personal one-on-one accountability, and stress management, nutrition, and sleep. So let's dive into sleep, because this is what I look like for a lot of my last few years of my life with all the kids we have. So think about it. How many of you on this call swear that you're functioning on 4 to 6 hours of sleep a night? So I can absolutely raise my hand on that. Yeah, Christine's got hers up. Sarah, I know with your kids, you might be saying that too. I always feel like if I can get 6 hours, I'm doing pretty well, especially on the days where I got to get up and coach super early. But research has shown that most adults in the US are really just heavily sleep deprived, right? I gave the presentation, I think it was last week, where we talked about activity last week, right? We talked about steps and then hydration before that. So like, whereas most people will assume they're dehydrated, and most people are not dehydrated because they forget the things they get from food. They forget the coffee count, stuff like that. Most people in the US actually are heavily sleep deprived. And in today's nutrition talk, we're going to dive into why sleep is more than likely, if you feel like you're missing something, is that missing piece, or that missing puzzle piece in your health and wellness journey. And we're going to give you tips for more sleep and some of the incredible benefits that come along with getting more sleep. Not to mention, again, if you're in a position where you can print something out on that Facebook post, we got a couple people coming into the call here. Got Gabby on the call. What's up? What's up? We're just going to keep you all muted. I know we just had an iPhone hop on too. So anyway, there is a handout. If you look in the Facebook post I put up today, there's a handout where you can take notes along the way as we go through this, okay? So we're talking about sleep. Success starts with sleep. It's the missing piece to your health and wellness journey, and you'd be surprised what you can get out of it. So let's start with, let me backtrack, make sure it's muted here. Okay. So for me personally, my story, big realization that I had with sleep, again, I've got 3 kids and one of them's 2. So she wakes up like wets through her diaper almost every night. So I'm getting interrupted sleep every night to help with her, whether I get up or whether I just hear her. Same thing with our other kids before they were potty trained. But anyway, interestingly for me, my story, when I got the best sleep in my recent times in my life, was when I had COVID in 2021. I got COVID in, I think, like roughly in the early September or late August of 2021. And I definitely got sick. And I had a really bad fever, but my wife made me go get the antibody treatment, and I got that stuff. And then I got really sick for like a day. And then after that, I felt like 100,000% better. It was insane. I felt like they put something in there to make me jacked up because I was better than I ever felt. But I really thought about it, and I realized that when I got COVID, it led to me being isolated in a room, which meant that my kids could not wake me up in the middle of the night. It also meant I loved to sleep in the bed with my wife, but also meant I was sleeping alone in the bed, and I had plenty of space and all that good stuff. It also meant that I could go, I was sleeping more throughout the day because I was sick, but to heal, but I was going to bed earlier and waking up a little bit later. So I was getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night, which does not happen any other time. But I will tell you that I felt like a 100%, outside of when I had a fever and I was sick, I felt 100% like a different person. The sleep made this massive difference because I just don't normally get that much sleep. I didn't feel like I needed to take a nap during the day. I was so much more productive. It was insane. So that's kind of my story of the realization of how important it is and why we need sleep. So you may have one. It could just be a vacation, right? Depending on where you go on vacation. We tend to go to Disney. Sometimes we got our kids, so we don't get a lot of sleep there either. But when we talk about, let me get back to the point. When we talk about a health and wellness journey and achieving, whether it's losing weight, whether we want to get stronger, increase your energy, or if you just want to get more healthy. Most of us focus on fitness and nutrition, and sleep needs to be like the first thought, because we don't grow things. We don't lose weight while we're awake. Generally, we don't increase muscle tissue. We don't grow things while we're awake. Those things happen when we're asleep. And with chronic disease steadily increasing, a lot of researchers have started to look at sleep as an integral part of the puzzle when it comes to overall our health. And insufficient sleep is actually linked to increased risks for all kinds of diseases like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, and even depression. And those are some of the things that we're going to move through and dive into. So this is a pretty interesting one. Did you know? I know I got a nurse on this call, so you might have known this. Some of y'all might have known this too. But did you know that our blood sugar increases while we are asleep? It's typically between 4 and 8 a.m., but it's often referred to as the dawn effect. In a healthy individual without diabetes, insulin will be released, allowing our cells to take in sugar. So how does that tie into sleep? It's actually pretty normal for blood sugar to go up because cortisol is going to increase once the sun comes up too, which is going to increase some things. You're going to need that sugar. So it's how you wake up. But a study with more than 4,000 participants found that the individuals who got less than 6 hours of sleep were more likely to have cells that were not as sensitive to insulin. So insulin, right, it helps us regulate that increase in blood sugar during that dawn effect. And if you're not sensitive to insulin, or as sensitive as you need to be, then your circulating levels of blood sugar are going to stay higher in relation to getting less than 6 hours of sleep. So I'll repeat that again because I tried to explain it a little bit too. But the study with more than 4,000 participants found that those individuals that got less than 6 hours of sleep were more likely to have cells that were not as sensitive to insulin. We need to be highly sensitive to insulin to regulate blood sugar. So very, very important. Sleep plays a big role in that. And I don't think a lot of people really think about that when they're going to bed at night. What's up, Holland? I see you just hopped on talking about sleep. The quick fact is that blood sugar goes up between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. when we're asleep. And then we release insulin to help us regulate that. In a study with over 4,000 participants, individuals who got less than 6 hours of sleep were less insulin sensitive, so they can't regulate this blood sugar as well. Now, while there's no like one answer for why this happens, one explanation has been described. Getting less sleep will affect our body's hormone production. So more specifically, if you stay up late, sorry, I got people popping in. If you stay up late or you don't get adequate sleep, your body produces more cortisol, which is normal, right? It's a response to us not getting enough of something. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Cortisol naturally goes up when light enters in when we're sleeping, when the sun goes up, because it helps regulate our circadian rhythm. So as I talk about cortisol, I don't want you to just assume cortisol is bad because that's how the media has painted it. Cortisol is a very helpful fight or flight hormone. Again, it helps regulate our circadian rhythm, so it helps us go to sleep and stay awake. Pro tip, go outside early in the morning when the sun's just coming up over the horizon if you can. Stare directly at the sun. It's much lower in temperature. You can actually look at it that time of the day, even through clouds, and your eyes will help you regulate your circadian rhythm, which will lead to helping with your sleep. Get as much sunlight as you can throughout the day, because the temperature and the brightness of that sun plays a massive, you don't have to look at it all day. That was really early in the morning, but the brightness, the temperature, they measure it in Kelvin. It helps regulate your circadian rhythm, which is going to lead to better sleep at night. A lot of us, our circadian rhythms are off just from artificial lights and things like that, which is part of our society. But anyway, let me get back to it. Sorry, a lot of asides here today. If we stay up late, if we don't get adequate sleep, body produces more cortisol, which can affect how our insulin works, because they balance off of each other. And even further, some researchers have described how a disruption in our circadian rhythm can affect how your cells respond to insulin as well, which is what I was alluding to with using sunlight to help you regulate your circadian rhythm. Get outside as much as you can, because your eyes pull that in and help regulate and tell your body at what time of the day it is and what point we're supposed to go to sleep. It also helps your cells response to insulin. So you're more sensitive to insulin with the sunlight. And this gets more challenging in different parts of the world, of the country, but we're in a pretty good place for this. So all these different things, like how we respond to insulin and how our cortisol levels are, can lead to increased blood sugar. If we've got increased blood sugar ongoing all the time, then it increases your risk for type 2 diabetes. So the short of it, if we're getting inadequate sleep, we're more likely to have higher levels of blood sugar because we're generally less sensitive to insulin. And that's not good. Okay. That's going to lead to higher levels of stored fat and increased likelihood of type 2 diabetes. So now let's talk about how lack of sleep can increase your risk for cardiovascular disease. So the Sleep Foundation stated that people who sleep less than 6 hours a night, we're going to hear that theme, 6 hours a night or less, are at a 20% higher risk for having a heart attack. And did you know that our sleep has different stages over the course of the night? I think most people know this because we've heard of REM sleep, but there's two main stages. There's REM and there's NREM, NREM. And NREM is a time when our heart rate and blood pressure increase. And during REM sleep, heart rate and blood pressure should decrease. So according to the Sleep Foundation, an imbalance of those two stages can happen when we're not getting adequate sleep, or that less than 6 hours. And they believe that that's what leads to an increased risk in heart attacks. So lack of sleep, or those who experience a lot of sleep disruption, like us with young kids, may also be at an increased risk for high blood pressure, stroke, irregular heartbeat or arrhythmias, and coronary heart disease. So again, just more information that more than 6 hours a night of sleep is very, very important. Here's another one for you. A lack of proper sleep can also increase the risk of being obese. So while studies have linked this starting when our brains are developing as children, we are going to focus on how lack of sleep will affect us. We're going to focus on how lack of sleep is going to affect us as adults. So think back to a time when you didn't get enough sleep. And if you're like me, this is now and all the time since you started having kids, if you do have kids, or younger kids, excuse me. But when you didn't get enough sleep, did you feel like you had more nutrition cravings, or you crave certain things? If you're thinking yes, there's a reason for this. This is actually normal. So when we're not getting enough sleep, talked about this earlier, cortisol in our body can increase because we begin to get more stressed out. Cortisol is a response to that. It's going to help keep us awake when we're forcing ourselves not to sleep. Again, cortisol is not bad. I don't want to paint it with a bad picture, but it's on us to have good habits to help regulate cortisol so we don't have too much of it all the time. A lot of people think their cortisol is high when it's really not. It takes a lot to really have it regularly be high, and they can do some serious blood tests for this at your doctor's office. But another hormone to talk about is called leptin. And leptin is the hormone that's released to tell us, that leads to us feeling full and satiated after we eat. And if cortisol goes up, or if we're not getting adequate sleep, cortisol is going to go up, which is it's fight or flight, right? It's stress. So Our body wants us to bring something in. It wants us to eat, to bring in nutrients. But leptin, the one that makes you feel full, actually goes down. So that plays a bigger role in those cravings than just cortisol. And then ghrelin, our hunger hormone, the one that tells us to eat, right? So leptin tells us that we're full. Ghrelin tells us that we are hungry, right? Or tells us to eat. Ghrelin goes up when we don't get as much sleep, and leptin goes down. So in summary, we're prioritizing the storage of fat and water in our body because cortisol is up and we are less full and more hungry. So the shift in these hormones due to the lack of sleep, not because cortisol is bad, but because we are making the decision not to sleep or because we're being interrupted in our sleep, can actually increase your cravings and how much food you bring in. So it's no wonder that a lack of sleep increases your chances for being overweight. Lastly, I mentioned how lack of sleep can increase the likelihood, at the very beginning of the presentation, can increase the likelihood of being depressed. So one study in 2011 found that people with sleep issues like insomnia, they had 2 times the risk for developing depression. So more specifically, lack of sleep can cause changes to our serotonin, our happy hormone, and we can have decreased levels of it when we have a lack of sleep. So another reason, or another more information on how lack of sleep can lead to negative consequences. So now let's flip the script. Let's go to the other side of this, and let's talk about how some tips for sleep success. And some of these you might know, but I think it's always a good leader communicates the important things over and over again. And we should listen to those things. So in today's like fast-paced world, it's almost impossible, or it feels impossible to get the proper amount of sleep. But I hope at this point that I've opened your eyes to just how important that is. And sleep is just important for our health as the food that we eat and how often we move. So let's dive into some recommendations and some tips. So there's a lot of debate actually on how much sleep we should get each night. Based on that research that I just presented to you, I don't think there needs to be a ton of debate. But there's people who swear, and you might be one of these people, but there's people who swear they can function on 5 hours or less a night of sleep, right? You got billionaires that talk about, I sleep 4 hours a night, all that good stuff. It's because they work nonstop. That's why they have lots of money. Most people aren't willing to do what it takes for that. But research tells us that if you function on 5 hours or less of sleep a night, or you swear you function well like that, it's just not the case. A very small percentage of people can actually function well and optimally on less than 8 hours of sleep. Sleep experts recommend that children get at least 9 hours of sleep each night. Teenagers should get like 8 to 10. There's so much growing going on with our kids. And then adults need at least 7 hours. Okay, 7 should be like a magic number, right? That's why we focus on 7 so much. 7,000 steps, 7 hours of sleep at least a night. All these things matter, and that's why you see the 7 so much in our BFP high fives. You might be wondering how in the world you're supposed to get that many hours of sleep each night. It's all about sleep hygiene, which is defined as behaviors that you can do to help promote good sleep and behavioral interventions. So 4 tips to help you promote better sleep for success. First, set your sleep schedule. Okay, I've probably all heard this. I know this isn't sexy. Okay, our mind and body thrive with consistency. This is vital. Even if you don't feel like you like to schedule things, you probably have daily patterns that you follow. One of the best ways to improve your quality and the quantity of your sleep is just to stick to a schedule. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every single day, including weekends. It's a game changer. I know it sucks sometimes if you wake up at 4 a.m. or 3:30 a.m. like I do during the week. I have no intention of waking up at that time on the weekends, but I will go to bed earlier when I've got to wake up at 3:30 a.m. or 4 a.m. to help try to counterbalance that. But if you can stick to that on the weekends, it's a massive change. I think most of us, as we age and go through life, if you start waking up at the same time every day for work, you don't tend to sleep way past that on the weekends anyway. It's just if we're getting up like in these crazy early hours when the weekends are really difficult. But when you can find your schedule, right? And if you've got young kids like I do that wake you up every night, it might not be in the cards for you to get uninterrupted sleep. Doesn't hurt if you can find a way to take a quick nap here and there, 15 to 20 minutes at the most, to help counteract some of that. But do your best to go to bed around the same time, and wake up at the same time as much as possible. Okay. If you saw the negative side effects of not getting much sleep, we're all adults. So we all understand that life can get in the way of things, but we all also understand that we can control what we can control. And oftentimes the time we go to bed and the time that we wake up, we have control over. So as you start to find your schedule, um, experts recommend not staying in bed and tossing and turning for more than 10 minutes, like as it's getting close to the time that you're supposed to wake up. So just something to consider. Tip number 2, practice a digital detox each night. When I say digital, so think blue light type stuff, TV, phones, iPads, and computers, you know, old movies, our parents, maybe even you all sometimes like sit in bed, read a magazine at night, or read the paper. We all tend to be on our phones, right? Or we watch TV. Like me, I'll pass out watching a terrible football game for the rest of my life, and I can be as happy as possible. But the sources of blue light can affect your body's natural circadian rhythm. And I'm going to allude that to sunlight in just a second, or relate that to sunlight. So studies show that light exposure, any light exposure, will decrease the body's natural production of melatonin. So melatonin helps us go to sleep, and it helps us stay asleep. So it's important. Melatonin is a really important hormone for your entire sleep-wake cycle. It's related to your circadian rhythm. More importantly, research has found that the light produced from our electronics, known as blue light, blue light's not like just bad. There's blue light all around us all the time. This is just a specific frequency. Blue light suppresses our melatonin production even more. So if you'll notice, if you go to like Lowe's and you see different shades of light, they've got these really bright ones for laundry rooms and garages. But then the ones that are supposed to go in your bedroom are like more yellow and dim. There's reasoning behind that. And make sure you're not putting crazy bright stuff in your bedroom, because in your living room, it's gonna affect your circadian rhythm and how you sleep. These artificial lights with different frequencies, because our body's designed to follow frequencies from the sunlight outside. Okay, and that changes. It starts low and gets higher and higher and higher, and starts to decrease throughout the day. So all of these reasons, but this information is why we recommend starting practice for a digital detox each night. So find a realistic time before bed, maybe anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes, to turn off all screens. Now, it's pretty cool though, tablets and phones, we do have those, they have like a setting that you can turn on as well to kind of minimize that blue light and that frequency. So I would recommend, if like my wife can pass out in like 10 seconds looking at her phone, like just be gone. So the phone, it doesn't necessarily, it can affect your ability to fall asleep, but to stay asleep as well. So if you can put that filter on, do that, and then you kind of solve some of that problem that I'm talking about here. But consider stuff you can do, like reading, journaling, sketching, talking to your spouse, whoever's in the bed with you, taking a bath, taking a shower, whatever it is, that routine, just winding things down is really, really important when it comes to sleep. And then we can talk about your environment. So tip number 3, keep it as calm and tidy as you can. So when things are cleaner, most people can relax a little bit easier. It helps our minds at ease and helps us fall asleep quicker. We talked about keep lights and screens off or far away. So like my TV is pretty far off in my room. But consider calming smells like lavender. Lavender has been clinically shown to help people fall asleep, like through essential oil diffusing and stuff like that. I worked at a nursing home in Wilmington. They used to use that stuff everywhere on the Alzheimer's halls and things like that to help the residents relax at night. But if you need noise, turn on a fan or get a noise machine. I sleep with a fan every night. I've been doing it since I was a kid. It's kind of a joke because it's so hard for me to sleep without it. But speaking of fans, you can also talk about the temperature where you go to sleep. Experts recommend it cold. To me, this is cold, and I love sleeping in a cold room. I could be shivering, but I'll go to sleep. They recommend 60 to 67 degrees is optimal. So I usually tell people 67 because it costs a lot of money to keep your room that cold. Maybe not so much in the wintertime. It definitely does during the summer. And you can overwork your AC doing that. But 67, you can get there. Very, very important. You'd be surprised how much your sleep can improve if you don't already do that. And then lastly, limit activities outside of sleep that take place in your sleep space. So just not like necessarily doing, like bringing your laptop and doing work in your bed, because it can lead to different levels of stress and being able to increasing how long it takes you to calm down when you do things wherever it is you sleep. I keep saying bed, like bedroom. But it matters. Tip number 3, optimize your nutrition. I promise we're getting close to the end of this presentation. I try not to make these too long. Tip number 3, optimize your nutrition. So remember we discussed how lack of sleep, it shifts your hormones and can affect like your cravings and how much you want to eat and your metabolism. It goes both ways. So meaning that the food you eat can affect how you sleep. So how you sleep affects how much food you eat. What food you eat can affect how you sleep. They've done continuous glucose monitoring experiments, which is pretty interesting. And when folks eat higher carbs at night, their blood sugar tends to stay elevated because we're just not using that stuff at night. And sugar at night, like ice cream, causes it to be high all night and potentially decrease the quality of sleep. When folks sleep, when they sleep worse, right? We talked about your blood sugar goes up, or like your blood sugar in the morning can be higher. Now, how significant that is, I don't know specifically, but I know I love eating a dessert at night before I go to bed. My wife and I, it's just a habit we have. So we've had to shift. There was dessert we ate. So like I eat vanilla Greek yogurt, like the little 80 calorie things. And I put some chocolate chips in there and I actually enjoy it quite a bit, but I also get some slow digesting protein overnight. So it's just something to think about. Everybody's different, but if you are like us and you like to eat dessert before bed, it's something to consider because it can potentially affect your sleep quality. So in general, though, we want to aim to maintain a balanced diet throughout the day, and that helps with sleep. So focusing lean proteins, non-starchy veggies throughout the day, starch your stuff around your workouts, lower glycemic carbs. So think brown stuff when you're going to eat the starchier things, not white stuff, and then healthy fats. Be mindful of your sugar and alcohol intake. Alcohol has a major, it affects your sleep significantly, even though you might just fall out. Quality of sleep, your level of REM sleep is decreased significantly as a result of drinking alcohol. So the quality is affected. And then let's talk about caffeine consumption, because I love coffee. I'm a big fan of caffeine. It does a lot of good things for your body, but I probably digest it really well. Not everybody does. If you grab an afternoon cup of coffee at like 3 p.m., that's 5+ hours away from your bedtime. So it probably is fine. You might think that way, right? But caffeine has what we call a half-life of 8 to 12 hours. So it means that, excuse me, I just moved some things on my screen, threw me off here. It means that it's still affecting you past midnight. So this can affect your quality of sleep as well, and possibly imbalance your sleep stages, right? The REM and the NREM. So just something to consider. Like for me, I know that if I drink a cup of coffee around 4, because I just love coffee. So a lot of times I'm kind of getting sleepy that time of the day, and I've got computer work to do, and I need some caffeine. I know that it'll affect my sleep. So for me, like 3:30 is my absolute cutoff when it comes to caffeine. But just something to consider, because that's a big thing for sleep. So 4 tips to improve your sleep. Went through them. Benefits for these 4 tips: improved functioning on day-to-day tasks of work, increased energy, recovery after your workouts, BFP will improve, muscle synthesis, so the creation of muscle can improve. You can lose more fat, right, related to controlling your cravings, but also increasing insulin sensitivity. Your mood improves, overall health improves, and tons more. So if you don't believe me, just try it, okay? Because sleep is very, very important. So we talked about a lot of this stuff. Those are basic FAQs that I've got in this presentation. But I want to talk about what we've got coming up. So if you're looking for a plan for success after the nutrition challenge, you got to make a commitment to yourself. A lot of you have done this through BFP. We've got to have some nutrition, right? And we focus we're excited to launch our brand new nutrition and accountability program after this challenge. We're only going to take on 10 people to start with, because we've only got one nutrition coach at the moment. We will be training a second one soon, but the coach will work with you individually to discuss your goals at the beginning. We did it. Make sure you schedule your post-challenge one-on-one meeting with your coach, because that's where you can get more information about our nutrition coaching service going forward, and to see if you're interested. There's 2 different levels. There's a higher accountability, lower accountability. Either way, you're getting weekly one-on-one time with your coach. And there's either monthly meetings. There's an initial 60-minute meeting. We got lots of stuff. We're excited. My wife Melody's going to be running this. So she's a nurse. She's done several nutrition coaching certifications now, and she's getting training from registered dietitians. So everything we do with our nutrition coaching program is backed by registered dietitians because we partnered with them to do this at Healthy Steps Nutrition. So just something to be aware of. And not to mention, honestly, like I've kind of just gotten over owning a fitness business for almost 10 years and people just working out. They get results, stop getting results, get results, stop getting results, or they go up and down, up and down, up and down. Up and down is life, right? I understand that. But my goal is to help people have the up and down not be so drastic, and to learn to be okay with the up and down, but have the habits in place to make the ups that they don't want so big. So it's a little more like, if we've got a straight line, a little more around that straight line. I think nutrition is the missing piece to that. And we focus on sleep and things as well in it. So when we discuss our health and wellness goals, sleep should be a part of the discussion. I know I just talked about nutrition coaching, but sleep is part of that, getting good habits. And the nutrition journey is not just the foods we eat. To improve our sleep for success, remember the 4 tips. Set and stick to a sleep schedule, practice a digital detox, fix your sleep environment, optimize your nutrition. And you need to move too. I didn't talk about that, but that helps tire you out. So that's everything I got. I appreciate everybody joining the presentation today. What questions do you have about sleep or the challenge in general, or bread, steak? I don't care, whatever you got. Like, do you have any questions? I'm going to sit here and stare at the screen for like at least 30 seconds to a minute. If you have anything, you can unmute and ask a question, or if you want to put it in the chat, I do have the chat pulled up. But again, as we go forward outside of the challenge for all of our current BFP members, we are going to be doing these nutrition talks monthly. And then we'll be having office hours set up to help people who are regular members as well, because we're going to build nutrition into everything we do at BFP, because it's just so important. Gabby, you got anything, man? Nothing? Just gonna start calling people out.
No, it was just very good class. Thank you.
I appreciate you hopping on, man. It's good to see you the other day. I'll be up there tomorrow too.
Nice, man. See you tomorrow. What time are you going to be there?
I usually get there between like 8 and 9 because I coach early in Hampstead.
I see. Yeah, that's the time I usually go, is either 8 or 9 o'clock.
Cool. Sounds good, dude. Christine, you got anything? I like your coffee sign behind you. Coffee. Laura?
Thank you. I was able to like multitask with work because I was listening to you, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm technically at a marketing conference right now virtually today and tomorrow. So I'm gonna get back on there after this call.
I was listening and I heard what was saying. And I heard the like dessert with the chocolate chips and like the slow protein overnight. I guess I'm wondering, like, when would you suggest to like stop eating for the evening? Like, is there a time where if you go to bed at 9, like maybe don't eat after 7, like just as an example?
So like a good answer to that, if we're going to follow like how long it takes to digest food. So it's usually like anywhere from 2 to 4 hours roughly, depending on people and their digestive tracts. So, I mean, I would say like a healthy recommendation there would probably be 3 hours before you go to bed to not eat. But I understand, like for us, that's very hard to do, because especially depending on how early you go to bed, because you got to make sure the kids are fed, and then you got to get fed, and unless you eat at the same time. But I think that would probably help contribute to sleep. But I would say an easy way to look at it is if you're going to bed and you just feel like stuffed or like bloated or uncomfortable, then you probably ate too close to bedtime, and you could work on just scaling that back a little bit over time.
Okay. And then just another quick question. I started to talk with Silas about this the other day. And as you know, like the whole calorie, just food labels, all of it is so new to me. Like when I do the challenges, I pay attention. And then, so part of my like long-term goal is to continue to keep some of this. So he had said, so basically my question was like, what is an average calorie intake of a meal? And then Silas had said, on the InBody, there's like the number that suggests that, but that's probably more of like an individualized answer, but that was something that I was considering. So yesterday I had my, I met Paula at Wendy's so the kids could eat. And then like we went to baseball, just a little treat. I have not eaten out. We've not had pizza this whole challenge. So, I'm getting there.
Good. Pizza's so good too. Trust me. We love
It's
pizza.
so good. Don't you worry. It will be my dinner next Thursday, like all of it. But my question was, so like I look at the menu and obviously there's like, is there cheese? What type of dressing? But like I ended up just not getting anything. But the one salad was like 300 calories. And then it was literally like lettuce, chicken, and maybe like dressing. Another salad was all the way up. I mean, like it could be 800 calories, 900 calories. And I guess where I get confused and I just genuinely don't know is like, what is an average calorie meal or meal? Yeah. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. I have answers for that, but do you plan on counting your calories ongoing?
No. So again, like no one else really knows me. So I apologize, but Joe does. So like I look at a Snickers label and I see 210 calories, right? So I'm like, well, that's a lot of calories. But then if I look at like the meal at Wendy's, that's 300. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's not too bad for like a meal.
Yeah.
So
I see what you're saying.
I'm not gonna measure ketchup and ranch dressing. Like I will never be that person. I'm just not that disciplined, at least like yet. But I am trying to have an awareness of like, oh my gosh, I go to Jersey Mike's, my chicken cheesesteak is like 900, 1,000 calories. So like just trying to have awareness around that. And then that's where I'm like, well, I can eat a Snickers for 200 calories or like 2 rice cakes for 200 calories. So just trying.
Yeah. I think that's a really good, I like the way, I think there's several questions there. I see so I like that you're more aware of this stuff now, which is great. So short answer, how many calories is good for a meal? The answer I always give that isn't great is it depends. But for most women, probably anywhere between like 300 up to 600
per meal.
At least. I mean, 300 would be really low because you got to think, depends on how many meals per day you're eating. So, I mean, if you were only eat 3 meals, that'd be 900 calories. So be surprised. I would get a lot of women who aren't eating enough and their body everything slows down as a result. But if I was going to recommend, like I'd say it'd be, if you're only going to have 3 meals, you're not going to have anything in between. And let's say we're talking about drinks and everything. Most women, I mean, anywhere between like 500 and probably 700 calories per meal.
Okay.
Would be good because that would put you between 1,500 and 2,100 calories a day. Now, again, this is going to vary drastically between people.
Sure.
Because the size of their body matters if you're actually counting calories and the calorie recommendation. So it depends. You could look at that number on the in-body, your basal metabolic rate, and that would be how many calories you burn if you just ate food and didn't move all day and your body just did what it needs to do to survive. But we're going to recommend more calories than that because obviously you're going to get up and walk around. You're going to move your hands when you talk on Zoom calls and all that stuff isn't considered in basal metabolic rate. So that number is a place we might start with people that are counting calories at times because it's easy for them to achieve. But we want to work that up over time so that we can build our body up and increase our metabolism, because when we build our body, our muscle, our metabolism increases, we burn more calories. You see that number on the in-body sheet go higher as a result. If we just lose weight, like muscle and fat, that number goes down. If we gain weight, that number goes up. So ideally, we can keep weight kind of steady and have muscle go up and fat go down to an extent. It doesn't happen forever. It's not always easy. But that will make that number go up. So your metabolic rate increases. And then you burn more calories at rest, which is really, really important. So what I really like though, is that you're being more mindful. I think you should frame that in a way. You're like, all right, I can get 210 calories from a Snickers, right? And that's like a Snickers, which is not a meal. It's not going to leave me full for very long, right? But that's almost half my calories for one of my meals. So now if I'm going to eat 500 to 700 calories a meal for 3 other meals for the day, I've added another 210 calories on top of those meals, with that
Mhm.
Snickers bar.
Mhm.
Now, if it fits into your overall plan, then that's fine.
Right.
No
Yeah.
big deal, right? Like 210 calories isn't massive, but that
Right.
can add up if we're not eating a lot throughout the day. But I like that you're seeing things like at Jersey Mike's, like that chicken and cheesesteak sub is 900 to 1,000 calories, right? Most of that's from cheese and some of it's from the bread because it's just big, dense bread.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised how high in calories certain salads are and a lot of subs are.
Mhm. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. That's why I sit here and stare at the screen.
So funny story. I thought Sarah was just like frozen forever, but it seems as though that's her actual picture.
Yeah, that's her off-screen picture. She's
But
out walking at Kiwanis Park. Actually, she did go on
yeah,
camera earlier.
I was like, oh, she's frozen.
All right, cool. If nobody has anything else, everybody's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all being on the call. We'll do this again tomorrow at 7. Y'all have an awesome day.